Good morning, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you based right now?
I'm in St. Louis. Yeah, I've been in St. Louis since 2013. So yeah,
Nice.
I've been here for quite some time now.
Feels like you're maybe one of the few SEOs that's not in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, I know. And I'm probably like, St. Louis is so small. I pretty much know every SEO that's here.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of a unique situation. So
Cool. So listen, I have a lot of SEO questions, a lot of things I want to ask you. But the first thing is, how did you get into SEO? What's the story? What's the story there?
yeah, so pretty interesting story. I actually going into my senior year in college. So this is 2011, 2012. And my family wanted me to kind of go the traditional path, right? They wanted me to be the lawyer. They wanted me to maybe go into law enforcement, like something that was like
Right.
set in stone, like you're going to get a good paying salary and do this thing. But little did they know on the side, I was trying to figure out ways to make money online.
Nice.
So I went through the motions and like, yeah, I'll take the LSAT for law school and I'll study for it. But really what I was doing is on the side, leading into my senior year, I was just trying all these different methods to make money. And I did pretty much everything that you can think of. I did paid surveys. I did that for about a month. So I would literally just bust out these surveys.
Nice.
And I would make like 10 cents an hour roughly.
Wow.
So at that point, I was like, this probably isn't going to work, right? I don't think I can do this. And then even then when I did the surveys, they wouldn't even like pay me out. So anyway, I immediately pivoted to started, writing articles on like eZine articles and other directories at the time. And like you would write an article and you'd get like a percentage of the AdSense revenue. Once again, we're talking pennies here.
Pretty brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went and tried to sell my college books, which also was unsuccessful. That was after a few months of experimentation. Eventually, I stumbled upon a course. It was called Web Colleagues. I don't think it's around anymore, but at the time, it was $47, and like that felt like $470,000 to me at the time.
Yeah,
because I just had no money, right?
Right.
A college student, no money. So I was like, oh man, this is risky. I don't know if I can do this. But I ended up actually buying it. And in that course, there was a lot in there, a lot of kind of sketchier. And I know we'll be talking a little bit like gray, black hat stuff. But like
yeah.
at that time, that was pretty normal, right? Doing kind of like gray hat type of SEO was much more common. But in that course, one thing that really stood out to me was the concept of blogging. So it said, one of the best ways to make money online is to start a blog. And I was like, okay, I feel like I could do that. Like I was a decent writer. I have a degree in political science. So like I had a lot of experience writing. So what I did is like, I had to think about what's the one thing that I knew how to do. And at that time, it wasn't a whole lot, but the one thing I knew how to do was play baseball. Right. So I was a baseball pitcher on my college team.
Nice.
I was like, well, I guess I can do a blog about baseball pitching, right? That was like the most common thing that I could think of. So I started this blog, called it theultimatepitcher.com. And I actually spelled ultimate wrong. Okay. So it was actually the ultimate pitcher. This was an accident, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I was like 3 months into working on this site before I noticed. I was like, oh that's goodness. Interesting. I spelled it wrong. No wonder it was available. But anyway, I started that site and it was a struggle, right? I was just pumping out content, content is king. So I was just writing all the content and just getting no traffic. And then eventually I was like, all right, back to Google I go. That led me into searching about how to get more traffic to my website, which then eventually led me to SEO. So then I took everything that I learned about SEO and applied it to this first site. And I started getting organic traffic. And then I made my first affiliate commission, which I can still remember to this day when it was. It was the winter of 2012. We were actually going on our way to go like bowling with the whole school. And I looked at my phone, I'm like, oh my gosh, 47. It's funny. I made $47 affiliate.
You made the money back.
Yeah,
there you go.
And I was like, that's it. This is what I'm doing. Like I immediately made that decision. As soon as I saw him, like, this is what I'm doing. Like I am going to do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, that site ended up doing pretty well. It started to grow a lot of organic traffic. And in fact, it started doing so well that other people in that specific vertical wanted to buy the site. right? Because they're like, hey, you're doing well. Can we just buy it? So I ended up actually selling that site later on to a former MLB pitcher.
Wow.
Yeah. So
not bad.
So
First
anyway,
project.
yeah. So that was kind of cool. But the real big kind of aha moment, if you want to call it that, was discovering SEO, right? And so when I like first saw organic traffic coming into that site, I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can, like it just opened Pandora's box, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I could start any site and I could grow traffic with Google. And that was like crazy to me. And so I didn't like, that was never my goal to get into SEO, but it was just like, I was so pumped by that thing that then I started creating multiple sites. So I created, sites and Under Counter Ice Maker reviews and Bowflex reviews, and come to find out in the affiliate space, which I didn't know at the time, you can't use a brand's name in your domain. So I built up this site. It was called Bowflex Reviews HQ. And I built it up and I was ranking for like all these Bowflex related keywords. And I get a little email from Bowflex like, hey, sorry, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I had to shut that site down, which was an interesting experience. But but anyway, from like 2012 to 2013, roughly, I was just creating all these different sites. And that's what really helped me kind of build this skill of SEO, which then led into 2013, where I took on my first clients. We can get into the specifics.
We'll get into all that.
Yeah.
I do. So, did you get started with, were you doing BlackHat SEO at the time with those early sites or no?
Or
gray hat. Let's say
I would say I was more gray hat. I mean, there was some
like PBNs and stuff, or
lots of PBNs, lots of even public blog. I mean, I was basically any type of link, because at that time the links were, you could do really whatever you wanted until Penguin came and destroyed me. But yeah, it was like that. And then in fact, even in that training course, the first one, it said one of the best ways to improve your rankings, which was ridiculous now in hindsight, you would actually buy traffic and drive it to your site. So you buy fake traffic, drive it to your site, and like Google would trust the site more because there's more traffic. It was nonsense, right? And I did that. So I actually would like pay this service to like drive traffic to the site. And then eventually I stopped to like, I don't think this is doing anything. So so I was definitely more on the gray hat side. But I will say the one thing that I've always done that is white hat is really focus on content. Like always, like even on that site, like you could go back in the archive.org and look at that site. Like the content was legit. Like I was actually investing a lot of time in the content. And even at that time, when I didn't really know how to structure content for SEO, is more like, hey, there's a keyword, let me create a piece of content. Like that was basically my strategy. So we'll dive deep into your content strategy in a bit. So what's your current day-to-day looking like? Because obviously you have pretty big agency, you also have an academy. What's it looking like? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, honestly, it's pretty boring. Like what I do, it's very, because I've just found that I have to stay on a schedule. If I'm not on a schedule, I will go off the rails. So I just have to be very like boring and scheduled and down to every single minute of the day. It needs to be scheduled for me. I know it sounds like psycho, but it's the only way that but it's the only way I can really handle, like control myself ultimately. Right. So for me, most of my time is spent creating content. I would say like 80% of my time is on content creation in one way or another, whether that's creating YouTube content. I know you have a growing YouTube channel, and you probably know how much time it takes to do that.
Yeah. We'll talk about that as well. Yeah. Sure.
So YouTube, creating blog content, like, right now I'm creating a series on EEAT, and, it takes me 20 to 25 hours to do one blog post. So it can be very time intensive. And then obviously Twitter and LinkedIn, which I'm pretty inconsistent on those fronts. And then the other part of it is creating content for the program, right? Gotch SEO Academy. So like 80% of my time is spent doing that. The other 20% is operations, making sure that the clients are happy on the agency side. And then with the Academy, twice a week, I do coaching sessions. So every Tuesday and Thursday, I do coaching sessions. They're roughly an hour, sometimes an hour and a half if it's a really long one. So that's where about 2 hours in the week goes. But yeah, that's basically it. A lot of my time is spent on content, and then obviously various projects mixed in there. But
so are you writing all your blog content?
Yeah, I do.
It's just you.
It's just me. Damn. Yep. And and that's by design. right? Like I could certainly go the whole scaling content approach and do everything, but I just know no one can really replicate the nuance of what I can bring to a piece of content, to a particular topic, especially not AI at this point. So, and we'll talk about that, but yeah, I mean, there's just different philosophies, right? I mean, there's people who want to just scale content and try to get as much organic traffic as possible. But for me, what I care about is when I create a piece of content, I want it to have an impact. I want it to actually drive. I want people to read that content and say, wow, maybe I should look into working with Nathan. Maybe I should see more about what Gotch SEO is all about. Like, that's the point of the content for me. Like, I want it to drive leads, right? Yeah. It's not designed just to rank. I'm not just trying to rank, right? I want it to actually do something. So we can get into that part when we talk about content. So,
and how involved are you in the agency these days?
My agency side is very unique in the way that I am the direct contact with the clients. So, really? And that's part of my selling proposition is I say that I'm the one-on-one contact. Now, this doesn't mean I do all the work, right? This just means that I'm the point of contact. So when a client reaches out, they're reaching out to me and I'm filtering that back out to my team, and that's filtering back up to me. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can get into it, but first of all, is a selling proposition, right? That's the first thing. Like when someone knows that they're going to be able to work directly with me, it's much easier for me to sell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number two is account managers are difficult, right? And it's difficult to be able to have an account manager that, first of all, knows how to manage accounts well, and also has the expertise to send that back up to the client. So, and in a traditional agency structure, you would have, you'd have your like director, you'd have your account managers, and then below that, you'd have maybe project managers and then the SEOs. So the point is that you need to have someone who has good soft skills communicating with the client, right? And if you have someone who has good soft skills and they know what they're actually doing in the craft, that's the perfect combination. And if you've tried to do this before, trying to find that is pretty much the hardest thing that you'll ever find.
Impossible.
So I've just made the decision to keep the agency really lean and small, have higher retainers, much bigger investment, but to maintain that personal touch. Cause I've done it both ways, right? I've tried to be the way, like, I'm going to be totally hands off and just not touch anything. And of course, what happens, right? We know where that goes. So yeah, as far as the agency, most of my time is spent on the director side. So directing the campaigns, kind of directing the orchestra basically, and then creating systems. So creating systems to actually be able to do the work is critical. So yeah.
How often are you in contact with clients? Is it like a once a month type thing or?
Yeah. So I have a very set cadence. And I actually teach this to the members of the academy, but so weekly cadence. So every week, weekly. Yeah. There's a weekly communication no matter what. And so I have it set up on Friday. So on Friday, there'll be a little hey, here's what we did. Here's what we're working on. And here's maybe some results. Now, every email isn't the same, right? Some will be about like, hey, we just scored these 2 awesome backlinks. Very simple thing. Or, hey, we just published these content assets, or, hey, we just optimized these 7 pages, right? It's just a little update. And sometimes it might just be, hey, this keyword just improved by 20 spots. Like, very, very simple communication. And I used to be very different with this. I used to not communicate with clients at all, right? Because I had this false idea that that the results were all that mattered. Right. I used to think that. I used to, if I just get results, like, why do we need to talk? Why do we need to communicate? Like, in my mind, I had convinced myself that like it was all about the results. And that was the biggest mistake I made. And come to find out, it's much more than that, right? It's much more than just results. It's also the relationship. It's also how they perceive the campaign. Right. And just results. Like I took me a while to figure that out. But once I realized that it's really about the experience on top of it as well, that's when I said, okay, weekly communication, then obviously the big monthly report at the end. And then on top of the monthly report, we also do a call. So we jump on a Zoom call and just go over everything that's happening, what's going to be happening.
And so is that you on the call? That's you on the call talking to?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Right. So, and the thing is, not every client takes me up on the call, right? Only sometimes they'll want to jump on. It's like 50-50, right? 50% will want to do it. But I know that time investment will get me another 3 to 6 months of retainers,
Yeah.
right? And retention, like no matter what. It makes such a huge difference because so many people who do any type of client work, not just SEO, they just refuse to get on the phone. Everyone wants to think about scaling. Everyone wants to think about like, what's the path of least resistance? But when it comes to agency work, it's all about the relationship completely. And it's all about retention because it's much more expensive to go and try to acquire new clients than it is just keep your existing ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Outstanding. Could you walk me through a couple highlight case studies that you have with your agency? And then I want to break down how you're doing all the different facets of SEO. But for now, yeah, if you could just walk me through a couple case studies and like take me through what the issue was or what the condition of the website was at the time, and then how you brought them to.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll try to give you a couple different like types of businesses just so we can get some coverage there.
That's awesome.
So first one I'll tell you is a legal business. Okay. They're basically a media business in the legal space. So they create a lot of content in the legal space. So anyway, they came to us and they wanted to relaunch their site. And the site had basically no traffic, but it had, I think it was like 3,500 pages. Okay. 3,500 pages, basically no traffic. That's a very alarming issue.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
very, very bizarre. So what we did is we did our audit, and our audit is basically at a high level is we use Screaming Frog. We integrate all the APIs. So Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Ahrefs. And we integrate those. And then what we do is we run the crawl and we look at the data and say, okay, what's happening with all these pages? So the first thing that I'll do is I'll look for the worst performing pages, right? So that's going to be pages that have no traffic in Google Analytics, no impressions or clicks in Google Search Console, and no backlinks, right? So if it has that trifecta, then something needs to change, right? And obviously there's many different ways to, many actions you can take with a page, right? It could be just straight up delete it and let it 404, right? There's, it could be improve it and upgrade it and then republish it. It could be consolidation. Take what's there, add it, consolidate with another page in 301 redirect. It could be just a straight 301 redirect with nothing when it has, maybe existing backlinks. You want to retain those backlinks. And in some cases, you will use no index in some rare cases. But in this case, it was pretty much all thin content with no KPIs. So I made the executive decision to delete 90% of their content. So, wow, and having a discussion like that with the client isn't always super
Not easy.
You gotta kind of walk a fine line. But the way I'm able to do that is by using data, right? Like the numbers don't lie. This isn't my subjective opinion. This is look at the numbers and something needs to change here. What you've done before isn't working. So now we're gonna rebuild this thing. And that's what we did. So we deleted the content and literally deleted it, like 404'd it, let it just completely disappear out of Google search results. And so then what we did is after we did that, then we worked on rebuilding the content. So building out a keyword database, starting to build out the new assets the right way. And, within 6 months, their traffic had doubled and then it just continued to, grow every single month. So that was like one part of it was rebuilding the content strategy. Then of course, acquiring links and doing all the other things. But that was like the main thing that was
interesting.
Seems counterintuitive in many ways. But I've done that so many times on websites. Like I just love cleaning up websites because there's so much junk on a website. Like I've never seen very rarely I'll have a client that just like got it all squared away, but 95% of the time there's junk on sites that needs to just be cut. And so that was one, and that was on a national level in the US. Nice. So it's doing quite well. And another one more recent is a local business. Okay. And this local business, they do roofing and siding and windows and all these other things. And they target multiple locations in the state of Massachusetts. So very interesting situation. They had worked with an SEO company. I won't name names, but it was a big one. And they worked with them for 3 years. Okay. 3 years. And they didn't even rank in their core location. Like not even on the first page.
Jesus, 3 years.
They're paying $3,000 a month. So they weren't, it wasn't like they were investing $100 a month. Like they're paying a pretty good amount. Yeah. So 3 years. And the worst part about it is that the city that they were targeting wasn't even like a large metropolitan city. It was like, I'm in St. Louis, it'd be the equivalent of targeting like Chesterfield, like in the St. Louis County, right? Like a tiny little city. And they weren't even ranking on the first page. So One of the problems was all of their service pages were not even targeting a location. So when I got on the discovery call and they're like, yeah, we're not ranking for anything. And I go and look, I'm like, well, you need to have the city on the page to be able to rank. So, it's like the most basic. So when I see something like that, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. You've just made my job so easy.
Yep.
So anyway, what I did is on all the service pages that are in their main navigation, we rebuilt those and made them targeted to their core location, right? So we just wanted to dominate their core location. So we literally rebuilt the URL structure to actually have the location in that service page. So it'd be like roofing contractor, city, and then state. It would be like St. Louis MO right at the end. And we did that for all of their main service pages, republished them. And within I think it was 3 weeks, they hit number 1 for almost all of these keywords. So
Madness.
3 years versus 3 weeks. I didn't do anything crazy. All I did was just do basic optimization, right? It wasn't like monumental changes. So did that. And then you run into this kind of awkward situation on local when they're targeting multiple locations. Cause it's like, okay, well, we also want to target also in the case of, I'll just do St. Louis to make it easier. We want to target St. Louis, but we also want to target Baldwin and Chesterfield and, all these other cities. So how do you structure that on the site? It gets a little weird. Like, how do you create content that isn't duplicated or cookie cutter? So what we do, and I do this with every site, is I'll just pick one location and really try to focus in. So in this case, it'd be like, we just pick Chesterfield. And this is what I call a secondary location. And so we build out those pages exactly how we do with the main area. But every page must have unique content. That is my rule. I will not create a page unless it has 100% unique content relative to any other page on the site, right? So we invest in content on those pages, publish them as a cluster, and then of course all of those start ranking as well. And there's all the other things that we do as well, internally linking those together and then cross-linking clusters and all that good stuff. It's just making things relevant, right? Yep. So doing that, and honestly, once again, very simple strategy, just focusing one cluster at a time. And of course, every month we acquire links. So getting editorial links from good websites also helps, right? So, but nothing complicated. So I could do this all day. So that hopefully, So, okay.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. It is interesting how many agencies are out there that really they don't even do the bare minimum. They don't. No. They are just out there just trying to get as many clients as possible without really doing much. It's insane.
They do do the bare minimum. They will install Yoast.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but they won't do the deep stuff, right? They
level 2. They won't get there.
So,
Can we talk about your current style of SEO? I'm sure that's changed a lot over the years. What does it look like now? I know it's very content intensive, but give us a breakdown.
Yeah, my style. That's a great question. My style has changed a lot. We'll talk about old Nathan versus new Nathan as far as doing SEO. So the old version from 2012 to 2015 roughly was gray hat. Right. So, and you can go to prove this, go to BlackHat World and search Nathan EG. Okay. As a username. I will
do that. I'll do it.
Yeah. So fine. You'll find it. And that was my username. And you can go and see all of the BlackHats, I don't really consider them BlackHat, but I bought a lot of link building services from there. And you can see in the thread, that I clearly purchased them. So at that time I was heavily focused on the link side. A lot of links. I cared about the content, but even with clients, it was links. That's all that mattered. And that's because links work so well at that time, right? I would test this a lot. I'd throw up kind of a dummy site, have a headline, a video, and maybe one sentence and maybe one external link to Wikipedia. And I would just slam that page with PBN links and it would rank for these keywords. Just stupid stuff was working, right? Stuff that would never work today. And that's why at that time, there were a lot of people in the SEO space, a lot of gurus that are no longer here, right? They've moved on to different industries because it's so difficult now relative to back then. So anyway, that was my main focus back then, was building a private blog network. Okay. So I had hundreds of sites, such complicated things going on. I had a different host for every one. And I had this, it was just crazy. So anyway, it was working. And then in 2015, I looked at my phone and it was manual action, and I had just so many manual actions that I didn't even know like how to process it. It was like Google had somehow found my entire footprint. And honestly, it wasn't that hard because what I did is I was linking to multiple clients from the same websites.
Yeah,
right.
It's tough. Yeah.
So very simple footprint to reverse engineer. So what happened is like pretty much all my clients got manual actions. So as you can imagine, I was like, well, I guess I'm done for. So I basically was like, I'm going to lose these clients. My business is going to die. But of course that was like 3 seconds. And the other rest of my time was like, okay, how can I fix this? Right. Mm-hmm. And so fortunately I went through, I cleaned up all the gray hat links, resubmitted my reconsideration request to Google, got all the manual actions removed.
Really? All of them?
Yeah, all of them removed. All of the traffic recovered. Everything was fine. I didn't lose a single client. I don't know how. To this day, I still don't know how I did. Yeah. But that was a scary time, right? And for me, that was it. I was done. I was like, I am never using PBNs or artificial link building ever again. Like, and not to say I don't pay for links in some ways.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But this is more like the real artificial stuff, like literally building fake websites to drive links. Like I was done with that. Like I was done with that level of manipulation. So that was the turning point for me, was from that point forward. And then from there, it's all just been a really big focus on the lead domino in SEO, which is content, right? I want to make sure that's so squared away and done so well that I need less links to get the same result. Right. I don't want to have links make up the gap for all the other stuff. Right. I want links to just be fuel on the fire of something that's already doing really well. Right. So that's kind of like the change in philosophy. Before it was like 90% links and 10% content. Now it's like 90% content and user experience and things like that, and 10% links. Not to say that links are only 10% of the ranking equation. It's just my way of viewing it is like that. So, So yeah, that's kind of the difference now.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. What about your content strategy? What does that look like? Are you a believer in topical authority, clusters? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes to really all of that. For me, I just want to absolutely dominate a topic, dominate a keyword, right? And so it's a good question because my philosophy has changed quite a bit. So like around 2015 or to maybe 2017 or so, what really worked with content was building out these monstrosity pieces of content.
Yeah, super long.
So so like if you wanted to rank for backlinks, which I did rank for at one point, you would build out this enormous piece of content. So I had one that was like, I think it was like 8,000 words, right? And it also had 2,000 comments on it too. So it was like, when you combine all that content together, it was like an insane amount of words on that page. So it did work at that time. But then Google got really good at understanding intent, right? So at that time, like Google would just basically say, oh, wow, this has everything we need. I'm going to rank it for all of this stuff. Like, so you would rank for the main keyword, you would rank for all the long tails. But then Google got really good when Hummingbird came out and started to really understand content better. And now everything's been more splintered, right? So, and I talk about this a little bit, like splintering off content. So what I do so much, and this is part of building topical authority, is I'll find a page that's ranking well. I'll look at its keyword profile and I'll go to keywords that are ranking from position 50 and beyond. And that might be a little weird, but the reason I'm doing that is because I look at those keywords because 9 times out of 10, those keywords are not relevant enough for that page. There's a mismatch, right?
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll look at that. So like I actually just did an example. I don't know if it was in my last video or something I did recently in some content. I can't remember what it was, but I have a post about best link building services on Gotch SEO right now. And if you go to the keywords ranking from positions 50 and beyond, there's one for Hoth SEO review. Okay. Because I talk about the Hoth in there. So Google's giving me a little bit of something. But realistically, that post will never rank for that. It's just it's not relevant enough. It's not specific enough. So if I wanted to, I would splinter off that idea and build a dedicated asset for Hoth SEO review, right? And so now I've built off a piece that now has built that topical authority a little bit further. And you can just keep doing that over and over. And then you've built a nice little supporting assets around the main one. So that's kind of the way that I approach it. And obviously, there's many ways to find relevant ideas, but that's my favorite because Google is telling you that those keywords are relevant to that core idea, right? Mm-hmm. It's just not, that page isn't good enough to rank. It's not relevant enough to rank. So that's why I love looking in that spot. I call them clustering opportunities, but like 50 to 100, I think is the best for doing that. So yeah,
it's really interesting. I also remember those early days of the really long content. I had a client in the fitness space and we were looking at keywords. I think the keyword was squat or how to do a squat. Mm-hmm. And there was some competitor with like a 40,000 word blog post. And it was just like, what are you going to do with this? How can you possibly even just madness?
Yeah. And I'm sure it probably doesn't even rank now. Like those super long assets don't really work anymore. Yeah. So like even it's funny because even like for backlinks, if you look at some of the ranking results, they're not even that long. Yeah. Like I think Moz is ranking and it has like 500 words, mm-hmm. right? So obviously links are a big part of that equation, but still it's more about Google wants to deliver the most relevant results. And so that's why getting so granular, like I have so many examples of doing this, splintering off content, we could go all day, but the point is that be really granular, like hyper focus now is the way to do it. It works so much better.
Yeah. Cool. I want to talk about link building as well. What are you guys doing in the agency? What type of link building methods? I mean, it doesn't even have to be in the agency, just what you see is the thing to do right now.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, like the way we acquire links for clients versus the way I acquire links maybe for myself is a little bit different.
Yeah. Right? That's why I wanted to separate those two.
Yeah. So like for clients, it's pretty much two different link types. One is going to be niche edits and the other is going to be guest posts. Right. So honestly, that's probably like 95% of the links that we get. Occasionally, if a client is interested, we will look for a merger or acquisition opportunity, right? And so what that means is finding a website that has a great link profile. Sometimes it's an expired domains, but other times it will be maybe a smaller blog in their industry that has the perfect link profile that's relevant to them. And we'll reach out and be like, hey, would you guys be open to an acquisition? And then what we'll do is we'll acquire it, and then we'll 301 redirect that to the site.
The whole domain.
The whole domain.
Got it.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of kind of nuanced strategy in that. So like, so I've done so many of these at this point, but so let's say, and are you okay with me going deep on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah.
So like if you're going to do that strategy of like an acquisition, and like I said, it can be an expired domain or a live website. It doesn't really make a difference. What matters is the link profile. So the quality of that link profile. But often you'll see your strategy has to be based on where the links are going on that domain, right? Mm-hmm. So I've acquired a lot of domains where they have like 100% of their links going to the homepage, right? So in that case, what I will do is I'll build out a page on the site it's going to be redirected to, and it'll be like, hey, we just acquired Gotch SEO, and here's all the da 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 da. So then I 301 redirect that whole site to that one page because all the links are just going to go right to that one page because it makes perfect sense. In other scenarios, which is much more complex, is like, let's say you did acquire Gotch SEO, but you look at the link profile and like, I have links going to my backlinks post, my anchor text post, and like, I have links going everywhere, right? Like I think on Gotch SEO, I have like 95% of my pages have links, right? Like some sort of percentage like that.
Pretty good.
So in that scenario, if you're going to do a full site redirect, you would have to find a relevant alternative. So we need to find A to A. Right.
For each page.
Exactly. So if there's the backlinks post, I need to find a backlinks post on the new site. Yeah. Right. And so in that case, you need to you need to map it all out, and you need to get website hosting. And basically you need to pay for hosting for that expired domain to have those 301 redirects do what they're supposed to do. So it's a game of relevance. And the mistake that people make is they do that and they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to 301 redirect it to the homepage, and like, horrible idea. Because all you're doing is you're inheriting all these links and anchor text. It's going to throw off the whole profile of your site. So you don't want to do that, right? It's going to it's a game of relevance. So anyway, it's much more nuanced than people think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also said editorial links?
Yes. Yeah. Everything's editorial. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we talk about the biggest mistakes you see people making in the world of SEO?
Oh man.
You can just pick one if you want. We don't have to go through all.
Yeah, biggest mistakes. I mean, I think the mistakes, like obviously there's a lot of mistakes, right? Yeah. I mean, every site that I see has mistakes. Yeah. So no one's doing anything perfectly. I've never seen it happen. Very rarely. There's some people, maybe Brian Dean's the only person who I can say doesn't make mistakes. right?
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty rare group of people. But yeah, I would say it's more about the wrong philosophy sometimes. Okay. So like, and I know we were talking a little about AI. So this is a good example of like the wrong thinking. Okay. So, so if you go onto Twitter right now, I guarantee you're going to find someone who says, I'm using ChatGPT to create 5 billion pieces of content overnight. Okay. That's just not the right idea, right? You can rank with AI content. I rank with AI content. I mean, I won't say what posts are AI on Gotch SEO. There are some, right? But they're ranking, right? And I do that because it's more of a test more than anything. And I've done it on our other niche sites as well, like ranking with AI content. So it absolutely works. But the problem is the idea that creating a lot of content is a good idea, right? And that's never been a good idea. Like even before AI, like when Panda came, it destroyed all these sites that had all this thin content and we're using this mass production based approach. And at the end of the day, this is a game of quality, right? So that kind of like that idea, I think can really devastate a lot of people because they think, oh, well, I just need to target all these keywords. I need to create all this content. They're so focused on production volume that they forget that it's a game of quality. So like, yes, it will work. It will work short term. Like you'll get a lot of rankings, you'll capture a lot of rankings, but when a core algorithm comes, boom,
you're done.
You're gone. And also they're not focused on building the authority of the site, right? So like a new site can do pretty well, like temporarily, but when an algorithm change comes, the only thing that prevents that volatility is authority, right? And that's why we see, Huffington Post and Forbes, they don't move.
Yeah, those guys
they just don't move during updates, right? So, and even like in our industry, like SEMrush or Ahrefs, like they don't move, like just don't because they're so incredibly powerful. So that's kind of the thing that I just think is a bad way to look at how to produce content. Like when I think about content, like when I pick a keyword, and this is more from the perspective when I'm actually creating it. Okay, I'll admit when I create content, it's much crazier than if I were to do it for a client because just their budget doesn't warrant what I would do. Right. So like it literally isn't like, because I mean, their whole budget would go to creating one piece of content. They'd be like, are you kidding me? like that would be insane. So
25 hours.
Yeah. So, but the way I think about content is when I pick a keyword and I look at the search results, I want to say, okay, this is how the intent is being satisfied. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, how is the intent being satisfied? Are there a bunch of blog posts here or are there transactional pages? And you can do certain things even in that regard. So like, I'll give you an example. With Gotch SEO, I'm targeting the keyword best keyword research services. Okay, so when I first found that keyword, I looked at the search results and 9 out of 10 results were basically businesses selling keyword research services, right? So most people be like, well, if there's transactional pages, you should create a transactional page, right? That's like the kind of idea. But I knew that I needed to create something that was very different than what was ranking if I wanted to get any traction. So what I did is and this is even funny thing is before the experience part of the EEAT equation came out, because I was basically like a lot of my content models Mr. Beast. So like I'm always thinking about ways to do that. So at that time, what I did is like, okay, well, instead of me just building out a generic kind of like, here's the best keyword research services, I actually went and purchased every single keyword research service, reached out to all of them, found out all of their pricing, purchased ones on Fiverr, purchased ones on Upwork. Like I just did the full spectrum. I think I did like maybe 11 or 12, I think is how many I actually purchased. And then I ranked them, right? I actually went through and ranked them based on the experience that I had with them. And that post has been ranking for several years without even really that whole lot of link building. And I've done that countless times. Like I've done that with the best CMS for SEO as well. Like I created that case study like 4 years ago, maybe even longer. And like, it's beating all these authority sites. And even in the post, I even say at the end, I'm like, watch, I'm going to rank this post and it has like 400 words. Right. And it's because I picked an angle that no one else had done. Yeah. So that's what I'm always looking for, that when I create content, is like, what's the angle that I can pick that not only has no one ever done, but also if I pick this angle, how difficult is it going to be for someone to beat me? Right. Like
to replicate.
Right. What's the moat around this? So like in the best CMS for SEO, I analyzed 10,000 keywords. Right. So of course someone could come in and do 100,000, but like, it's difficult, right? It's difficult tough, to replicate it. And the same with the keyword research services one. Like, yeah, you could buy more, but like I picked that angle, right? Like now I have that angle. So like, yeah, you could copy me, but like I was a first mover on that angle, right? So it's thinking about like, what's the angle that we can find that's going to help us differentiate in the search results. And it makes a huge difference because once you rank and you're like, Seth Godin, purple cow kind of, you're really standing out in the search results, you get the clicks, right?
That's brilliant. It's brilliant.
So that's just, I know it's pretty crazy, like the way I think about it, but that's just the way I try to approach it. Like I spend a lot of time just thinking about like, what's the angle that I can take? Yeah. And if there isn't an angle, I won't even go after it. Right. There's some keywords where I'm like, there's no angle here. Like I don't know what I can do to find a spot here. So I'll just move on to a different one. So yeah.
Interesting. I want to talk about local SEO. I know you definitely have a lot of local SEO clients. What do you think are the three main things you need to focus on to rank locally?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously local pack and then the traditional organic. So a little bit different ranking factors, but in the local pack, obviously your actual location. I know it's often overlooked, but like, I can't believe how many clients come to me and they're like, they have an address in Chesterfield in their headquarters, but they want to rank in St. Louis. And I'm like, you're not going to rank in St. Louis. Like you, no matter what you do, you not having a physical address in that location, it's game over, right? You can get all the reviews in the world, you can get all the links in the world, but just not having that physical address and that specific phone number and area code, it's too difficult, right? And obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but like most of the time, that is the case. So get the address. Like if you want to rank in local pack, get an address in that location. Simplest thing to do. Then after that, as far as local pack, reviews are key. I mean, reviews are by far the biggest impact. I know you see people like, you need to build citations, and we rank without citations all the time, right? It doesn't like citation. My philosophy is very simple. If anyone else can do that, if anyone else can do something without much effort, it's not super valuable, right? Anyone can build citations. It has literally no value at all. So why would Google assign a lot of weight to it if anyone can just go and build citations? Right. So, getting reviews needs to be the focus of any local campaign. And obviously that's not so easy working with clients, right? Depending on their situation. So that's, location, reviews, and then obviously NAPW, name, address, phone, and website information being consistent, like definitely a good thing to do, right? There's definitely some value there. But then outside of those three things, I mean, obviously optimizing your Google business profile is a good idea, right? Do all the basics and populating it with as much visuals and posts and whatever you can on the actual profile itself, like all good things. But after that, the biggest factor is going to be links, right? Authority of the site and the traditional factors that influence organic rankings outside of local packs. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I think about as far as like priority order is like location, reviews, get the Google business profile squared away, get the NAPW information all consistent. And then outside of that, it's all the traditional things that we'll do. Link building, create content. I will say one thing too, which I didn't mention, which is, and this is a very important nuance on local, which I talk in the academy a lot about, but often you'll see some agencies who will, let's say they're targeting like a St. Louis plumber, okay? And what they'll do is they'll do all those things right, but then they'll want to create content for this plumber. Now, what they'll do is they'll go into People Also Ask, or they'll do something like that, and they'll find these ideas, but they're national ideas, right? So they'll be like, what is a plumber? How much does a plumber charge? Like, and they target these keywords on the national level for
it's relevant. It's relevant.
Yeah, for a business that's targeting local intent. So it's a very different strategy that we deploy is I look at, okay, they're St. Louis plumber. So what type of content can I create that's going to be relevant to that location and that service, right? So it might be like the history of plumbing in St. Louis, right? Something like that, which is very specific, still relevant to the industry and still relevant to the service. So I'm looking for geolocation relevance and service relevance. And I think it's like people got it like 50% right. So they like get the topic relevance, but you also need the local relevance. So, and it's actually really easy because you can just go into Ahrefs or whatever keyword research tool you're using, find the idea, and then just attach the location to that idea in many ways. So like, how much does it cost to hire a plumber in St. Louis? Right? Very, just one little extra piece to that makes it a million times better as far as building relevance. So yeah, those are just a few things that I think about. Yeah.
Yeah. Random question. What SEO tools are you using? What's your stack looking like?
Yeah. So my stack, I mean, obviously Ahrefs and SEMrush, I have both
use
of
both?
those.
Yeah.
I use both. Yeah. And it's just because, to be honest, sometimes I won't name which one, but it's broken a lot of the time.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
So I don't want to say anything, but there's one that just is broken a lot. So I need to have a backup, and the backup is rarely ever broken. But there's downsides of both tools. So it's good just to kind of have both if you can make that investment. If you just need one and it's like, I'm not going to say, I want just you need to have one. Okay.
I mean, I did see you on the SEMrush YouTube channel. So
yeah. And this thing is like, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. Right.
Yeah.
Cause like I did have a collaboration with SEMrush. So like, if I'm like, use SEMrush, like clearly it's not going to look good. But I use Ahrefs and I use SEMrush. Like you'll see in my YouTube videos, like I'm using Ahrefs a lot of the time. So, and if you had to pick like an SEO tool, I'll just say those are the only two that you should pick from. Okay.
Interesting.
There's other ones out there as far as like overall big SEO tools, like those two, you got to pick at least one of those for link analysis and keyword research and all those things.
I agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Outside of that, Screaming Frog, big one I use all the time. Always using Screaming Frog and Surfer. Right. So Surfer is the other one that we use. And then outside of that, that's basically it. I mean, I have a lot of other tools for the business side, but like as far as the SEO side, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Let's talk about some YouTube SEO, because I did see you on that SEMrush YouTube channel. But can you talk to us a little bit about your channel? So what was the goal behind that? It was just to build an audience, just to get leads, maybe people to the academy. What was the thought?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even at the time, my goal was like, I just need to be on YouTube. Like I need to be creating video. Cause like when I started doing it, this is like 2015, I think. Everyone was saying that video is like the next thing. Like, almost all of content consumption online is going to be video, which actually ended up being true. Most predictions are usually terrible, but like that prediction was absolutely spot on. Like absolutely right. So fortunately at that time I was like, all right, I got to get involved in this. I got to do some video. And I'll just tell you, like, it was the hardest thing for me to do. Like I'm a very introverted person. I'm a very private person. I don't like want to do video. Like it takes a lot for me to do that. And actually in like 2000, I think this was 2015, we had signed up for the Yext like partner Yelp partner program. And at the time, what they would do is they would bring a videographer to your house or your office. I was in an apartment. So they came to our apartment at the time and they would film you and be like, hey, I'm Nathan Gotch and I do, and this is what we do. Well, I had never been on video before. So this is the first time. And like the guy shows up and he's like, okay, you ready? And I'm like, ready? Like I'm not even gonna like write a script or like
get out of my house.
Like go off the cuff type of thing. And I was like, okay. And I'll never forget, he put that camera on me and there were not a single thought going through my mind. Like it was so blank. I formulated a couple things, but it was awful. And that was like, after that, I was like, I will never do video. I was so embarrassed, so like defeated that I was like, I don't think I could ever do this again. Fortunately, I got over it. Right. And, but I did it, I took baby steps. So like, I didn't go from that to like YouTube. What I did is I actually, we can talk a little about the academy. I don't want to be pitching the academy here, but this is kind of
go ahead.
The academy, the first version of the academy that I published in 2016, it had no video. Okay. And why do you think that is? Because I was super afraid of video after that experience. Yeah. So I'm competent in writing. Like I'm confident in my writing. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just do kind of like a written course. Stupid idea. Just a dumb idea. And I ended up selling, I think 7 students into it. And I had like 4 or 5 refunds. And I was like, yeah, that wasn't a great idea. I fully expected, I'm like, okay, yeah, like you should get a refund. Like that was awful. But then I was like, okay, I have to redo this. I have to do video. And I was like, all right, how am I going to do this? So what I did is instead of me being on the video, I just did over the shoulder stuff. So I just recorded my screen and talked, on my microphone. And actually at that time, I didn't even have a microphone. So I just talked directly into the computer mic, which
perfect,
as you know, is not ideal. So the audio was awful, but it did help me because I ended up recording like hundreds of videos for the Academy.
nice.
And it was all in this way. And like the quality was very low, but like I had finally started to build a little more confidence, just by taking baby steps. So then eventually I decided, I'm like, okay, that was like, let's call that version 2.0 basically of the Academy. And I was like, all right, I need to redo all of this with good audio. So I did that, redid all the audio. Audio was clean. It was still over the shoulder, but the audio was clean. I got a microphone, like it was much better. And then I was like, all right, well, now I need to get on YouTube. So my first video, and I think it's still there. My first video is actually, I was still so afraid to like show my face. So I took a video from the Academy and posted that on YouTube. And this is the old Academy. So like I posted that on YouTube, and that was like my first YouTube video. And then eventually I published my first video, which was like I think it was like the fastest way to make money online, which was client SEO. So I did a video about that, and like, it's bad. Like, but I keep it there because I want to see how far I've come. Yeah. Right. I want to see like, okay, here's the benchmark. This is where I was awkward. My delivery was off. The video was too long. Like there's just like, I could just destroy myself on all these different reasons why it wasn't good, but that's good. Right. Cause I can look at that and say, you know what, I've come a long way. Right. And so the way that I did it and the way I overcame my fear of video is I just recorded more videos. Right. There was no secret to anything I did. I just got over it and just took my ego out of it, took my insecurities out of it, and just said, you know what? I'm just going to record. Right. And I'm not, this isn't about the way I look. This isn't about anything like it. This is about me adding value. Right. All I'm doing here is I'm just recording to help people. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that. Right. That's easy. Right. Yeah. So just with that idea, I just kept doing that. So now to this point,
No, I mean, your channel's phenomenal. You've definitely helped a lot of people. You definitely helped me. I've definitely learned a lot from your channel.
That's awesome.
So,
I'm glad to hear that.
But I honestly, I wouldn't have said that you're an introverted person just from watching your videos, right? You look super natural and very confident in your videos. So I definitely wouldn't have guessed.
I guess I'm a good actor then.
So what does your process look like for these videos? Yeah.
So very similar to what I do in Google, right? So I think about like, what's the angle I can take with this particular topic? Now YouTube's a little bit different because you don't really have to worry about keyword cannibalization a whole lot, right? Like you could technically create tons of videos just about SEO and you would still probably do pretty decent, but I still do consider it. I try not to do the same topics, the same keywords, at least for a lot of time has passed. So like I just did one for Learn SEO, but the last time I did that topic was like, I think 3 years ago. Right. So I let a lot of time pass before I did it again. And so what I do is I will treat it similar in that way that like, I'm going to look for a keyword, right? So I'd say like 80% of my content is like around some type of keyword.
Okay, cool.
The other 20% is what I would consider like newsjacking. Right. Mm-hmm. So like I'll see
ChatGPT,
ChatGPT or, the Yandex leak that happened. Yeah. So if I see that, I will jump on a video fast because I know, there's going to be a lot of interest in there and I can kind of capture that if I do a decent video. So that's really it. But most like that's pretty rare. I don't do that very often. Most of the time it's very deliberate. Like, okay, here's a keyword I want to go after. Then I look at what's ranking, which on YouTube is weird, right? Because like the ranking results aren't necessarily the result that's driven the most views, right? Because of suggested videos. So it's weird in that way, but I'll still look at it and I'll say like, okay, what have people done here, right? Like what have most people done? And then I'd say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to be very different. And usually that's pretty easy, right? Like it's not hard to differentiate your video content because it's always going to be you most of the time. So anyway, once I've done that, find my angle, then I write a script. Right. And I'd say like, once again, 80% of my videos are scripted. The other 20%, if it's an over the shoulder, right, I just did a video on Monday, which is showing how to rank for the keyword, is film school worth it? Yeah, I think it says, is film school worth it? So the whole video is about me showing like how I would go about ranking that. And I pick a random URL and like show what I would do to improve that URL. That's all off the cuff, right? Like I'll do a little bit of an outline for my analysis. And then I just like, I go. Right. Yeah. But for the other ones, like the one I just did, which is like, I don't know, 5 SEO tips, like that's all scripted for the most part. I will inject some like over the shoulder videos throughout the video, which will be more off the cuff, but basically if it's over the shoulder, it's off the cuff. Yeah. So if I'm on it, it's pretty much scripted. So yeah.
Don't you feel like you're running out of ideas to post on YouTube? Because that's how I feel. And I haven't been doing it for that long.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. You have to get used to repeating yourself in some ways, right? And like, that's really hard for me because I always want to bring something new to the table. But realistically, you just have to remember that like people aren't paying attention as much as you think. Yeah. Right. Like you may think like, oh, well, I already talked about that I can use Answer the Public to get, to find keywords. But like, yeah, you might have said that, but you might have said that at minute number 6 and most of your people only watch minute number 4. Right. So now you're talking like the majority of people have not seen that one tip. So like, yeah, I've just had to kind of get over that, but I still try to find unique ways to kind of inject things. So like recently, a lot of my content has a lot of ChatGPT stuff in it. Right. So like my content right now is very relevant to the time. So if you watch my content now, it's leveraging the existing technology. I should have mentioned that ChatGPT is one of the tools that I do pay for as well. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy. And that's why sometimes there'll be gaps in my content. Cause I'm like, I don't see any angles. Like I don't see any, like, I don't want to talk about another topic again. Like I have a video about on-page SEO checklists. I don't think I can do that video any better than what I already did. Right. Like,
is that your biggest video? I think it might be.
I think it might have the most views potentially. Yeah. But yeah, like that one, I invested so much in that video and like, I just don't know like how I can modernize it, right? There's a lot of things I would change, but like realistically, it does its job, right? So I'm basically going to avoid that topic for a long time until more time has passed. So that's just kind of the way I think about it. And yeah, you're right. It isn't easy, but one thing that has helped, and this might help you, is just trying to find different formats that are very unique to you, right? So like, yes, I'll do the talking head, kind of like the how-to kind of tutorial stuff. But then other times I'll just do the straight raw, like here's how to do SEO from a very like technical, like full process type of thing. And some people love those deep dives, right? Yep. And other people like the kind of how to, pattern interrupt type of stuff. Yeah. And it's so funny, like every time I publish something, there's always like one end of the spectrum that like has some sort of, let's call it constructive criticism, right? So they'll say like, if I do one that's really technical, which I can go really technical, they're like, oh, this is too technical, right? And then I'll do one that's a little bit higher level. This is too simple. So it's like,
I know you can't please everybody.
No, you can't. So that's why you gotta focus on the majority. And like when I look at like every time I publish a video, I immediately get some thumbs down, right? Immediately. Like there's just trolls who just want to immediately hit it. It's so easy to focus on that. Like, what are these like 2 guys that don't like my video, right? And like, it's easy to go down that path, but like, I'm just so beyond that point. Yeah, like, all I look at is like, what's the majority, right? And when I have 99% like ratio to dislike ratio, why would I even care about the 1%? It doesn't even make a difference. So it's just important to mention that because YouTube, I would say that's the most difficult part when you're starting is like, you're going to get a lot of, we'll just say constructive criticism. That's not always constructive in many ways. So you just gotta be able to handle that. So.
And last one about YouTube here. What do you think about shorts, YouTube shorts?
I think, you should be investing in them for sure. I haven't done them as much as I should, right? I find it difficult in some ways in this industry as far as SEO goes, because SEO is such a deep topic, right? Like I feel like I'm doing people a disservice if I'm like use these 3 keyword research tools. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But like, what is that integrated within the whole process? Like anyone can find keywords. That's easy. There's no skill in that. But like, what do we do? Like what keywords should we target? How do we qualify and prioritize these? Like there's so many different pieces to the puzzle that I feel I'm just not giving them the full value. So I think there are times for it, like for newsjacking, that's probably good. Like, hey, a new Google algorithm update just came, and here's what, like that type of analysis. But like, as far as how-to stuff, like, what are you going to do in 60 seconds?
Yeah,
I mean,
so difficult. So difficult.
But not to say, I mean, like it's, once again, this comes down to like the angles. And I know people are like, well, you just need to publish as much as possible. And like, I just am not that type of person. So yeah, I know the Gary Vee approach, like there's different ways to do things, but for me, I want to focus on quality over quantity. So yeah.
All right. Next question. I've been asking almost everybody that I interview this specific question. So if you have a brand new website, what are the first 100 days looking like?
Oh man, first 100 days. Yeah. So right away, brand new website. So we won't be doing an audit. So the first thing we'll be doing is keyword database, right? So build that keyword database. And for a new site, it's a little bit different than an existing site. So with an existing site, obviously what I would do to build a keyword database is immediately scrape the keywords that they're already ranking for, right? So I like to start there, put that in the database, and then I categorize those keywords based on where they're ranking. So like if they're ranking position 2 to 15, I consider those low-hanging fruits. So those get prioritized over all other keywords. Because I know going from position 2 to 1, we're talking a 100% increase in clicks, from 15% CTR to 30% CTR in a lot of cases. So I like to focus our effort in there, like make those pages way better, drive links to those. That's the focus. But for a new site, like you don't have that, right? So where do you get those keywords from? Well, what I do is I just look at the competitors. So I'll go in, find the top competitors in that industry, and then just basically build out my keyword database based on that, right? Who are the top dogs? I'm going to take all their keywords, right? And that's all I'm going to do. And more often than not, you'll have more than enough to work with for 100 days. Like you'll have so much to do. So that is the most important thing, is getting those keywords set. And then once you have the whole database, then you got to filter through all those, right? You need to figure out what are the ones that we actually want to go after. So some higher level stuff that I'll look at, obviously the keyword difficulty is a higher level metric I'll look at, the search volume. Those two, you can filter through a lot of keywords very fast, right? But then after that, once I've kind of filtered through, let's say I have like a set of 100 keywords, how do I prioritize those, right? Like, okay, we got 100, good KD, good volume. Now what I want to look at is I want to look at the intent, right? So what we'll do is we'll categorize all the keywords based on intent. You can do this with SEMrush pretty well now, at a pretty scalable way. Because SEMrush, I'd say it's like 90% accurate most of the time. Like it's definitely has inaccuracies as far as categorizing intent, but like for the most part, it's pretty good. But still to this day, we still do a lot of manual intent analysis. So we'll categorize the intent. And so I actually have a metric called the IRT score. So intent, relevance, and trend. So we'll look at the intent, and then based on the intent, I'll assign a score to that intent. So if it's transactional intent, it's going to get a higher score compared to if it's informational intent, it's going to get a lower score. And the reason for that is because keywords that have transactional or even investigative intent are worth more, right? They're worth way more than just what is SEO, right? Like, SEO tool or best SEO tools versus what is SEO, very different value assigned to that. Right? If you were selling an SEO tool, for example. So we always prioritize ones that have really bottom of the funnel intent and work our way up. So like the way I think about informational keywords at the top of the funnel is to support the bottom of the funnel keywords. So that's the way that I go in reverse. Like a lot of people will start at the top and then go down, but I start in the reverse. So if I see like, SEMrush review or SEMrush coupon code, like I'm going to start down there. I'm going to go SEMrush coupon code, SEMrush review, best SEO tools, and then what is SEO, right? Like I'm going in the reverse. And then because realistically, there's much more informational ideas than there are kind of bottom of the funnel stuff. So that's what I start to think about. The relevance metric is going to be largely dependent on the type of business. So like, for example, at Gotch SEO, I sell SEO training. Anything that has SEO training in it or SEO course or anything of that nature would get a score of a 3, right? So, because it's the most relevant to what we do as far as our core offer. Something like what is SEO? It's relevant, but it's not directly relevant to what we offer. So it would get a score of like a 2. And then something like, I don't know, let's see, Jeff Bezos quotes, okay? Something like that. Yeah. It'd be like a 1, okay? Because it's just so, it's not like, yeah, it's in business, but it's just not there, right? So it's really important because that's one thing a lot of people skip is like, the keyword should be hyper relevant to your core offer. Like that's where you should be building from. Now, if you have an affiliate site, that changes that metric a little bit, right? Because you don't actually have a product. But when you have a product, that's really important. And then trend is one that I use occasionally. I don't always use trend, but what I'll do is if let's say I have like a set of 10 keywords and I'm really struggling, maybe they're all kind of similar after those other metrics have been set. I'll look at the trend of those keywords. I'll say, oh, okay, this keyword is trending upward. So I want to go after this one versus the one that's declining.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just based on demand ultimately.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's kind of the first stage. That's kind of like the higher level quantifiable stage of the process. And then once I've selected those keywords, then I'm going to go into a little bit deeper. Like, okay, look at the overall domain strength of the competitors for that keyword, right? So like sometimes you may find a keyword, oh, wow, it has a KD of 0. But you go and look at the overall site authority of the websites that are ranking.
There's a big boy, yeah.
Yeah, there's like, 9 out of 10 of them have a DR of 90. Okay, yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. It has a low KD.
Yeah, the KD is relevant, yeah.
Right, so that's why I always think it's funny people like use KD as their main thing. Like KD is that's just the beginning. That's just how you get at some initial good ideas, but like it is far from the last thing that you have to do before you pick a keyword. So I look at the overall strength, and then from there, if I'm like, okay, we've got I look for weaknesses, right? So like I want to see like, oh, there's a DR of 30 ranking there. There's a DR of 20 ranking there. Oh, there's Quora's ranking and Reddit's ranking. Okay, these are good things, right? I see those things. I'm like, all right, this is one I want to go after. Then that's where things get really crazy. So I don't know what's time we have, but that's
25 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I basically settled on a keyword. And then that's when I have to go into what I call the qualitative analysis of the competitors. So opening up the top 10 competitors and just looking at everything that they're doing, right? I want to know them better than they know themselves.
Jeez.
So, and then that's what I'm doing. It's extensive investigative research on the competitors and their weaknesses, their strengths. If they have something that's really good, I'll replicate it, right? I'll be like, oh, I like that. I'll replicate that. Most of the time though, most of it's like, I can do that better. So anyway, that's kind of like, but that process I just outlined, that has been developed over time, right? Like before it used to be like, oh, low KD, let's go after it. And like, that's just not a good idea. So you need to have these other mechanisms because the worst thing you can do is invest in keywords that are worthless, right? My goal is to invest in keywords that are of value, high value. And this is going back to our discussion in the beginning where it was like, it's not just about ranking, right? I can rank for a lot of things, but I'm choosing to not rank for them because they don't have a direct link to what I'm selling and they're likely not going to produce the conversions, right? And it's not that I wouldn't eventually target those keywords, but it's a matter of priorities, right? And there's unfortunately, not trying to badmouth agencies, but there's just a few that often I'll see where like, I'll look at the keyword profile for their client and their traffic's been going up. Right? Like, oh, wow, look at our traffic. It's going up. But guess what's happening to their conversions? It's just like this. Yeah. Traffic's going up, conversions flat as a board. And that's because they're targeting keywords that don't have any possibility of conversion. And all they're doing is targeting keywords that have high volume and low difficulty to juice their traffic numbers, but not to drive conversions. Yeah. So that's why the bottom of the funnel, the reverse strategy, I like to call it, at least for me, has worked much better. So
really cool. Yeah, really cool. All right, last question here. Let's talk about ChatGPT, AI, future of SEO. Is Google done? What's going on?
Yeah, that's a good headline for you too. I mean, there's just so much to unpack. Obviously, we could dedicate a whole
sorry.
session to this.
Let me break this down. So you are using ChatGPT.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am.
You're a fan of it.
I'm a big fan.
It's
I'm a big fan.
Really good.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, it's the most, I would say like there's certain points in my SEO career that I can remember, like as far as being very impactful. Okay. Like the Penguin update, like that was a moment I was like, whoa, this is, this is crazy. Like you can't just drive exact match anchor text to every single page. Like you can't do that anymore. Yeah. That was one. Then there was obviously the manual action one we discussed. Like that was a very eventful moment. There was also the exact match domain update. That was another one that I got hit really hard with. But like, then obviously there's a lot of stuff happened since then. The medic update, and there's been various core updates. I don't really pay attention to algorithm updates anymore, right? To be honest, like I just don't care because I'm not concerned about them, right? If we do get hit, then it's just telling me that we did something wrong. Right. That's it. So I'm not mad about it. It just needs to be fixed. And that's not always our fault. It's just sometimes you get a client that's so far in the ditch that you're trying to get them out of the ditch and you didn't get them out fast enough and it rolls around, right? So that happens. But ChatGPT launching in, I think that was December of last year, right? Was that December or November? November or December around that time. Yeah. Yeah. But like when that launched and I played around with it, I was like, this is insane. Like it just blew my mind. And it was like excitement and fear, like every emotion that I could have. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, this could destroy our profession. Right. Like, but then like a little bit time has passed. I've analyzed it more. I used it to, create content, create a lot of content with it and ranked using the contents created. Now with GPT-4, it's much better. I mean, the content is really, really good. GPT-4 is a step up for sure. Yeah. It's a very big difference. Even the prompts and what it spits out initially is like 10 times better than what it spit out before. Still needs a lot of finessing, a lot of things that have to happen to get it. But the way I look at it is it's done a very good job of eliminating very low skill activities. Right. So low skill writing is gone. Yeah. It's gone. And it's great. And it's also great for people who aren't native English speakers. Right. So like if you're not a native English speaker and you maybe struggle to write, in English, it has leveled the playing field. Right. Now you can actually get onto the playing field with decent content and actually be able to do something. Right. Like I think it's cool in that way. But there's a big difference between what it does, like creating, just writing words versus really nuanced, high quality content, right? Like there's just certain things, like I've talked about this so many times, but like when I create a piece of content and and there's like, I write it out, I do all my unique writing that's very unique to me. But that's kind of the first stage of the process. It's just the words is only the beginning. Then then on that page, now I'm adding the visuals and all these other things. So like, for example, in the last post that I did, I have a bunch of memes, right? There's so many memes in there, but like those memes are very specific to what I remember, right? So like I did the research to find that meme because I had the idea to inject that meme in there, right? So like that's creativity. And it can be creative in some ways, but it can't be creative as far as the personal element of what you would personally do, like what you specifically would choose. Like the post I'm doing right now, I'm doing an example of something from basketball. So like a Kobe and the LeBron example. I picked that because I love basketball, right? Like how can it replicate that? Like, sure. Maybe at some point, like we could somehow feed it our preferences and whatever else. But that's the difference maker, right? Is the creativity. So yeah, it has leveled the playing field as far as like just writing words. It's definitely done that. But the way to beat it at this point is the uniqueness level. More creativity, more focus on quality, not quantity, because now anyone can do quantity. Exactly. Yeah. Anyone can do that, right? Yeah, it always goes back to quality. It always goes back to quality. Yeah. It does. So, but I will say the one thing that is just huge, like by far the biggest thing I think personally, the thing it does best is coding. It is unbelievable what it can do. Like the content's good. Like I said, it gets you to average, maybe slightly above average, but the coding is unreal. Now, once again, even with coding, the elite developers are not in trouble. Like the ones who have to build massive websites and massive architectures and all these things, they're not in trouble. But like basic coding functions, it's over. It is. Yeah. I hate to be like, I hate to be that, but
it's scary, but it's true. Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I think out of all the things it can do, that's its best function use case. So yeah, but as far as SEO, like I don't view it as a threat necessarily. I just view it as a tool. It's a tool that I can leverage and I can use to do my job even faster and better. Right. And obviously there are going to be keywords that are going to get eradicated, but that's nothing new. This has been happening for a long time. Featured snippets have been stealing people's traffic for a very long time already. I mean, go right now and look up what's the weather in St. Louis. There won't even be a citation. Google will just give you the answer. Boom. Yeah. Oh, what time is it in St. Louis? Boom, answer. Like this has been happening. This is nothing new. So, obviously it will be able to answer questions that are maybe a little bit deeper, right? It might be able to do that, but we have to always go back. And this is my partner, Simon, who's my partner in the academy. He always says, follow the money, right? And absolutely true. Follow the money. How does Google make money? Well, they make money from having search results. So they're not going to make money by answering people's questions.
Of course. Yeah, no.
So there's so many financial implications of the whole thing. And we have to remember, like, we're in a capitalistic society. I mean, OpenAI was a nonprofit and they switched to a for-profit business.
Not anymore.
Does that not tell you everything you need to know?
Yeah.
Like, so the point is, like, I try not to live on the extremes. Right. Like I want to be in the middle and take it day by day. Okay. New technology. I'm going to use it, take advantage of it, keep going. But there's so many other sides because of social media and YouTube. It's always the extremes that get views. Yeah. So you have one side like AI is the dumbest thing ever. It will never replace us. And then the other side that's like, our lives are over. We should all just quit our jobs and have universal basic income. Like, those are the extremes. Right. And I want to be here. I don't want to go like, I know both sides. Like I try to see both sides, but like, I want to be right here and just be a little more balanced in what's happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I'm also part of the problem because I'm definitely guilty of having a thumbnail that says SEO is dead.
but that's what drives clicks.
We got to do it. Yeah.
We got to do it. Yeah.
All right. So. Well, thanks for answering all those questions. Where can people find you?
I mean, you can go to gotchseo.com. I actually just put up a personal website, so nathangotch.com as well. Cool. It's very simple. Just kind of shows my story, 2011 to 2023 now. Nice. So you can go there. And obviously I'm on Twitter, Nathan Gotch, LinkedIn, and obviously YouTube. You can just Google.
YouTube,
or you go on YouTube.
Subscribe to his channel. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
amazing. Well, thanks for the time.
Of course. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's fun talking.
See you.